Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar today for CloudHub, and we are very happy to have our elite panelists from Guidehouse and Roche. We have Erik, Pupo, and Adarsh Srivastava from Roche. So they are going to talk about how we can democratize compliance at scale for HIPAA and the GxP. You guys know, so the agenda for today is we are going to talk about why there is a paradigm shift for the automations and what we hear from the customers. And we talk about how we can automate, the GxP compliance. And I'm going to show you guys how to achieve the GxP compliance at scale and how to achieve, automation at the same time. Then others is going to talk about data quality, ethics, and integrity, and why it is very critical when you are managing your GxP compliance, right? And last but not the least is Erik, because we are living in now age of generative AI, machine learning, and cloud computing. So automating compliance for healthcare and having the right strategy is very, very important. So Erik is going to talk about how we can automate the compliance at scale. Yeah, and we'll have around 35 minutes presentation, and towards the end we'll have 10 minutes for the Q&A. Okay, so with that, let's get started. And these are all our personal views. This is a disclaimer. So maybe welcome others and Erik to the webinar, and I'm really happy to have you on board. So maybe let's have a quick introduction. Others, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Susant. And, hey, Eric, and everybody. So, my name is Adarsh. I'm based out of India, Pune, and currently working in Roche, which is a pharmaceutical company headquartered in Switzerland. And I'm head of data analytics, quality assurance, engineering. So, me and my team, we look after the quality aspect of all the digital healthcare product which we develop here in Roche Diagnostics, and we're very closely working with both the engineering aspect of quality and the compliance and regulatory aspect, and then creating this sort of bridge between these two systems so that we have a flawless execution when it comes to launching a digital product. So this is something where I'm involved in, and I'm working on the concept of AI ethics and data ethics, developing these concepts within the organization, because I see this as a next step in evolution when it comes to quality and regulatory. So that is where I'm working with. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you, others. Really appreciate, and yeah, looking forward to your talk on AI and data ethics because it's quite important today. Yeah, so we have our next speaker, Erik Pupo. He's also ex AWS, and we are colleague in AWS. Yeah, Erik. So welcome to again the webinar, and yeah, if you can quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. So Erik Pupo, I'm the director for commercial health IT advisory at Guidehouse. We're the second largest healthcare management consulting firm in the world. Do extensive amount of work in healthcare IT, cybersecurity, digital transformation for large providers, large payers. I've previously worked at AWS, directing healthcare cybersecurity activities and healthcare compliance activities, as well as Accenture and Deloitte previous to that. I'm going to primarily be speaking a lot to just what we're seeing with our both our customers when it comes to automated compliance in healthcare and overall healthcare cybersecurity, as well as more generally with vendors, startups we work with, and other product vendors in terms of some of the work that they're doing related to the healthcare compliance market.
Okay, thank you, Erik, and yeah, I'm also glad to you be here and looking forward to your talk. So I'll just quickly talk about myself. So I am Susant Mallick. I'm the founder and CEO at CloudHub, and we are a startup company focusing on cloud compliance and also the regulatory compliance, along with the data analytics. We are almost more than 1.5 years and helping many customers how they can achieve their compliance at scale and how they can democratize the compliance so that they can able to uplift everyone in the organization to manage compliance, because compliance is a journey and it requires the support from each and every individual so that right the customer and the organization can achieve their compliance journey. So I have more than like 23 years of experience, and in the past, I was also with AWS for almost 5 years. I was a principal architect, and I was managing the compliance for healthcare and pharmaceutical customers worldwide. Having supporting many customers for many years. Yeah, so going to talk about how we can achieve the GxP compliance at scale. Yeah, so with that, maybe I will start with some of these, the presentation, and then I will hand over to others, you and Eric. So I think why we're talking about, the compliance today and why it's very important, right? Because as I mentioned in the beginning, because we are living now in the age of generative AI, machine learning, cloud computing, right? Everything is happening so fast, right? But if you think about some of these regulatory industry like healthcare and pharmaceutical or finance, right? You need to have the right kind of controls on your data, on your security aspects, right? And that's why we are talking about, today GxP and HIPAA compliance for this webinar. So what GxP means, if you guys do not know, so GxP encompasses a broad range of compliance related activities such as good laboratory practices, good clinical practices, and good manufacturing practices. And it ensures to protect the patient's health by ensuring the safety, efficacy, and quality of medicinal products or medical devices, biologics, and other food products, right? So very three key aspects of GxP compliance to ensure efficacy, safety, and quality, and is also being regulated by FDA 21 CFR Part 11. Similarly, in the EU, you have EU Annex 11, which talks about GxP and its guidance. On the right hand side, if you talk about healthcare industry, so healthcare industry is being driven by HIPAA compliance. So what HIPAA means is it's a Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which was introduced back in 1996. So it ensures the secure health insurance coverage when you change or lose a job. And similarly, it helps to improve efficiency and quality of the data. And also it provisions to protect security and privacy of protected health information, in short PHI, right? So that's HIPAA, and we are going to talk about today, GxP and HIPAA compliance. Okay, so I see there is a paradigm shift happening in the industry, right? Because we have seen the organizations and the industry is adopting cloud so fast, adopting machine learning and generative AI so fast, right? So when you are thinking about moving at that kind of pace, so we need to ensure that we have the right kind of automation in place, right, to fast track that kind of journey, right? And as per KPMG survey, so we can see the over 50% of CIOs and CCOs, they have not started, automating their compliance, activities. That means it indicates a significant gap and opportunity for business to gain a competitive edge, right? And similarly, 90% of the respondents planning to increase their investment in automation over next few years. And I was involved in many such kind of initiative across. You can talk about 50 top pharmaceutical customers or top five biotech companies. I was helping them in terms of achieving their compliance journey. So that is very important, to do that paradigm shift and ensure how you can automate your end-to-end process. Right? If you think about the GxP compliance, it requires lots of challenges. So what are those challenges, right? So that means achieving the GxP or HIPAA compliance is often a heavy lift process for the customers, whether it's life sciences or healthcare, right? So what we hear from our customer is from the development perspective, the way they provision their infrastructure is quite manual. They have manual integration and deployment. They manually do the code scanning, and they do the threat detections, similarly manual testing and reports and so forth. And once they deploy the resources, now obviously from the GxP perspective, you know to ensure that your infrastructure is being qualified and your application is being validated, right? And that's quite cumbersome effort. And I have seen customers spending months and years, all right, in terms of IQ, OQ, and PQ activities. And at the end, the daily operations, right? Once the system is live, regulatory or GxP systems or HIPAA systems, managing it, monitoring it, having right kind of incident reporting, managing change and release, it's quite challenging. So we need to ensure that how you can adapt automations to drive such kind of changes. And the critical nature of a compliance, I think everyone knows, if you are not being compliant, right, you get heavy penalties, right? Even if there is any data breaches, right, it results significant financial losses and diminish the consumer trust, right? So it's very important that you should have the right kind of controls and governance, right, on top of your cloud infrastructure or your data governance or overall operations. So that's why CloudHub has solutions called CompQ, and I'll just quickly talk about this architecture followed by a demo. So if you really look at from the beginning or from the left hand side, you can see that how you should build a control tower, a landing zone, which can help you to how to define your accounts, your networking, your security policies. And once you define that, then you need to onboard the services. For example, whether you are using AWS or Azure or GCP, as per GxP, for example, or for HIPAA, you need to ensure those services are being either HIPAA eligible or GxP compliant, right? And to do that, you need to ensure that you have the right kind of controls in place. And again, you can derive those controls and then integrate those controls as part of your infrastructure code, right? So whether you are using CloudFormation or Terraform, you can embed that and then you can deploy so that when any of your users or developers going to use those services, they can, use the services without modifying, so that you ensure that those controls are being deployed correctly, and then somebody is monitoring if somebody is trying to change that. And then when you are changing any request or creating a request, so you need to have the right governance, because the traceability is very important. So think about ServiceNow or any other ticketing solutions where you can raise a request. For example, okay, I want to create a S3 bucket, or I want to create an application. They can raise the request, and then under the hood, right, it can have integration with service catalog, and then that will go and invoke your code, and then that will deploy the resources. Once it's deployed, all right, through your pipeline, for example, your code commit or your Azure DevOps, then you can integrate that with your testing, for example, PyTest or step functions, so that you can perform your IQ and OQ. Okay, so that's the overall architecture, and I'll just quickly now talk about the demo. What we have done. Let me just so this video is what we have.
In an increasingly regulated world, healthcare, pharmaceutical, and finance industries navigate a complex sea of compliance requirements. For U.S. healthcare, adherence to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, is critical. The life sciences industry is governed by a set of regulatory guidelines called Good Laboratory Practice, Good Clinical Practice, and Good Manufacturing Practice, commonly referred to as GxP. GxP is intended to protect patient health by ensuring the safety, efficacy, and quality of medicinal products, medical devices, biologics, and other food products. The advent of digital transformation, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning brings incredible opportunities, but also intensifies regulatory challenges. These groundbreaking technologies, while transformative, add complex layers to compliance. Enter CloudHub. With our advanced CompQ solution, we are revolutionizing the way businesses manage regulatory workloads, transforming them from cumbersome necessities into smooth, automated operations. CompQ identifies industry-specific controls like CIS, HIPAA, GxP, SOX, and ISO, managing regulatory challenges tailored to your unique business needs. CompQ automates everything from qualifying cloud service providers to documenting their services, elevating efficiency, and minimizing human error. By leveraging cutting-edge tools like Terraform, CloudFormation, and ANC, CompQ automates the provision of infrastructure, streamlining your operations. With a continuous focus on security, CompQ scans your code for potential threats or breaches, ensuring only secure code is deployed through the DevOps pipeline. Beyond securing your code, CompQ generates infrastructure qualification reports in mere minutes. These reports can be seamlessly validated and integrated into document management systems, from SharePoint to Viva Vault. For cloud-based applications, CompQ automates up to 80% of validation, and for non-cloud solutions, it automates up to 40%. Such automation accelerates compliance processing substantially. With a simple click, you can access summary validation reports. Visual dashboards allow for real-time compliance oversight. CompQ's advanced system continuously monitors for any security or compliance threats, initiating auto-remediation to ensure compliance at all times. The adoption of CloudHub's CompQ solution promises transformative benefits: accelerated deployment, reduced costs of quality and compliance, and minimized risk of regulatory fines. With CompQ, you're free to focus on what truly matters: your core business objectives. We handle your compliance needs, guiding you toward a future of hassle-free regulatory compliance. CloudHub, your trusted partner in the world of automated compliance.
Thank you, Susant. So, on a very high level, what I'm going to talk about is what exactly is the foundation when it comes to GxP compliance. Okay, and one thing in my last 13 years of experience, one thing which I realized is if you really want to do good GxP, the first and the foremost thing which you have to focus is data quality. Okay, and when I say data quality, it's not a very linear way of looking at the aspect of quality in data. It has lots of layers to it. So, as Susant earlier mentioned, that GxP is it's a collective term of regulation and guidelines ensuring the quality and integrity of data within the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. Uh, uh, Preventing this, looking at this quality of the data from a different angle, and then making sure that whatever is needed from the for GxP is getting implemented is actually the key of this very smooth transition when it comes to compliance. So uh, there are four major layers, and there are lots of other aspects as well. But I'll probably talk about four major layers when it comes to data quality, which are the most important aspect. One is reliability, where we have to offer a consistent, dependable result every time. That means the data which resides there as a form of raw data, or as a data which is taken, which where we license a data from the real world community, it should be reliable, and then we need to have a place where it sits, and then we can implement interoperability on it. Yeah. Security is another very important aspect, where uh, we have to protect data from threats and breaches and unauthorized access. I remember we implemented encryption at rest and dynamic encryption, so that wherever the data resides, we have to protect it, because data patients we have in our organization, they actually trusted us with data. So security is going to be the paramount. And then the integrity is ensuring data is consistent and correct, uh, and when we need, it is reproducible. When I say consistent and correct, it should be interoperable, and then we should not be doing something which contaminates the whole data set which we have, and that leads to the accuracy of the data. So we have to make sure that all the events, all the records which we have when it comes to data which we have in our system, it is accurate till the time we are keeping it. Next slide, Susant. And why it is important, because there are lots of things which we have to face when it comes to poor data quality. And the most damaging one is the risk of regulatory non-compliance, right? Susan talk about HIPAA, which is in US, and then we have to look after GDPR as well, and there are lots of other regulatory compliance which is coming up, which revolves around data quality. So that is the the most important part of why we should be compliant when it comes to data quality, and then the threat to patient. Because if the data quality is not high, it is not correct, then it is going to lead to a wrong diagnosis, which leads to an incorrect treatment, which is for our customer, it is something which we cannot afford. And when it comes to launching a digital products where a bad data quality is being used, there are instances where we have to recall the product, right? And these are few of the major things which we have to face, because if the data quality is not there. And how to do it? It's very straightforward, very basic. You have to follow a structure. You have to create a validation system. Right now we don't have any fully automated system which can do this validation of regular checks and then maintains data integrity. But this is something which should be looked at. And the another one is standardization. It's a long battle in when it comes to healthcare, where we want to standardize the data. We introduce so many standards, HL7 and FHIR, but we are still looking for a way to create one standard system which can be followed by all. And then when it comes to how we are going to make sure that what we're doing with the data is right or wrong, that is where data governance come in, where we should have a robust framework, and we have a policies in and around the organization which can govern how the data is being used and data is being consumed within the system. Next slide. Thank you. That is another very important aspect of GxP compliance is quality management system, and this has a very different understanding when it comes to healthcare industry, because healthcare industry has lots of different moving parts. There's one which is digital, and there's one which is manufacturing, there's one which is research, and then we have to be very clear that what kind of system we are using to make sure that we are achieving highest quality management system in a within system. One example, one way of doing it is to create a modular QMS, right? Where we have a QMS system which can be plugged and play for a different kind of area of a healthcare industry. But it is very integral. And then if we really want to create a GxP regulated environment, uh, QMS needs to be implemented. And this actually push the system to create a framework which is excellent. And then we need to have a structured control as well. And then this structured control is something which can only be implemented using QMS systems. And because when it comes to QMS, it comes with a formula system of documenting process. There are lots of procedures which comes in, and then these are aligned with the industry standards. So that is another important aspect of quality management system. Next slide, Susant. And yes, this is important to look at the healthcare compliance from the risk management lens. So one thing which I really look after is that we we should look at the product from the risk management perspective. We should when we start developing a product, and especially digital products, with the set of data which is coming from the instruments, from medical instruments, from diagnosis, from EMRs and EHRs. When we start designing something, it is very important that we have a systematic process of identifying, assessing, and mitigating the risk right at the start of the development, right at when we start looking at it. Okay, and then it is very essential to ensure that we are moving with this risk mitigation style of development of a product, because it is going to make sure that the patient and the data which patient trusted with us is safe, and we are upholding the quality in the product which we are developing. And that is why risk-based approach is something which I believe should be implemented. And then it also gives us this flexibility of where what to prioritize when, and then what kind of area we should be focusing on before even going into designing or developing a new product when it comes to digital healthcare product. And okay, so with conclusion, we talked about three major things, looking at the data quality, the quality management system, which is important because it has process, and then the risk-based system. Uh, the most important aspect is when it comes to regulatory compliance and data quality, they are kind of a foundation stone, cornerstone when it comes to patient safety, which is utmost important to us. The quality of the product, so that whenever we are launching it, if we are compliant and we are not delaying the launch of the product and delaying the time to market. Also, if we work on the data quality and making sure that it is interoperable and sorry, data quality is high, we can preserve data integrity. And at the end, last but not least, is to achieve full compliance. Um, and for all these things, it is very important that we go with a risk-based approach. We create this strong culture and commitment towards the compliance, especially when it comes to data which we are use, and we use a very robust quality management system, which help us to create this framework where we can easily navigate this, the compliance, uh, when it comes to data quality. I think I'm done. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, others. I really appreciate. So I think you talk about the data ethics and data quality and how we should take the risk of this approach. Yeah. So now let's hear from Eric. How he is managing the healthcare's future strategy. So yeah, Eric, over to you.
Yeah, sure. First, agree with a lot of what Adarsh is talking about, especially with data quality, data governance. So, in terms of what you see with customers, especially around automation in general, but just in compliance overall, you have a scenario where there's more desire to use automation, more desire to use AI across cybersecurity compliance activities. But there's always these questions of data quality. We call it data pipelines, actually getting data into some type of common source that you can draw data from. The first thing we're seeing is it's a people problem. Just as much. Spend a lot on compliance, a lot of what we call compliance advisory engagements. Bringing somebody in to serve as an assessor and tell you where compliance gaps are, where you're not complying. So there's a desire, certainly a lot of the health care customers we work with, to shift that cost down. Where can we automate and make things a little less manual, a little more automated data collection, overall assessment process, and the reporting associated with that. Similar to staffing. So, there's a need for consulting. There's a need for assessors because oftentimes healthcare organizations don't have the what you consider the requisite staff for compliance and cybersecurity. So they do a lot of manual control mapping work. And what customers want to see is more automation here. There are tons of automation possibilities because a lot of control mappings and frameworks already exist for compliance. That's been done over and over again by vendors, by organizations. So to automate that part of it, make it more data driven, is not too challenging to do. Customers want that. They want automated processes to do that. It's that, again, that data piece of being able to then automate in terms of collection of data and reporting on it. And as part of that data piece, also a desire from boards, executives to know compliance posture. and to be able to get reporting to them that's simplified. So you see cases all the time now with ransomware attacks, with various security threats in healthcare, that this is a problem for a lot of different organizations of different sizes. And oftentimes boards, executives feel like, hey, we're not getting accurate reports on our compliance posture, security posture to be able to work from that. What we also see, and this ties into my next kind of slide in terms of vendors, is there's a desire for more customization, platforms, workload visibility in the cloud, proactive compliance management. Don't just tell me, something's not compliant. Do something. Call them compliance actions. So it's one thing is compliance mappings, like, hey, you map this NIST to HIPAA. That's wonderful. What about being able to do compliance actions based on not aligning to frameworks, dynamic measurement, looking at event activity logs in real time, and being able to continuously monitor against a different set of standards, and have alerts and corrections be done in real time to be able to do that. So if you go to the next slide, that's where a lot of vendors are shifting. They're saying, hey, look, we're not just going to do control mappings. That's already been done. There's control ontologies already done and integrated into products by a wide variety of vendors, startup, large vendors. Let's do more action-driven workflows. Let's use AI and automation to do that. Let's do more remediation that's automated, not so much human. So I need to have compliance analysts or have my HIPAA compliance team, for example, sit there and try to do in terms of technology environment and remediate. There's much more desire. Vendor, hey, provide me a platform to do that and give me a good experience to do that. Don't just give me a product that doesn't have a robust, what we call user interface or UI. It's got to be an investment there to make things easier, reporting easier, consolidate data sources, a one-stop shop, if you will, for observability. I don't want to go to 10 different places to find compliance posture. I want to go to one. I want to have ability to do what-if modeling. And vendors do more and more of that now, which is really neat, where it just kind of can say, in terms of compliance posture, we think we're something. Let's test if, in a scenario of what if we're not, especially for mapping out ransomware, mapping out, different cloud security threats that occur where you have environments that are multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. What does that look like? What are the impacts, and what are the impacts of resource decisions that are made, new architectures that are introduced, new workloads that are introduced into environments. Lastly, just again with Adarsh's theme on data quality, constant ingestion. Vendors are building this in more now, so that it's something that's part of their product. Integration into more now what we call security data lakes, even data lake houses, where it's all in one place, and auto tagging, where I can automatically tag sensitive resources. I can automate a lot of that process, even when new data, new resources are introduced into my cloud environments. And auto compliance for vulnerability violation, automatically implement controls, automatically scan, alert, take actions against compliance data. So what you're kind of seeing is a match more and more of vendors working towards the customer. And on the next slide, where that kind of comes into play now is in terms of overall risk management. More and more, kind of as where we're going in the future, there's going to be more and more of that built into products. Compliance actions, real-time data workflow, where real-time data is used to drive actions. More of these past SaaS platforms. So that's the direction all these security vendors are going. We want to be a security platform, all-encompassing, all-in-one, with collaborative workflows that can be built across those platforms. You see a lot of environments in healthcare where there's multiple SaaS, multi-cloud. Want to be able to work across to do that. A compliance workflow evolution of automation is one thing, but now merge that across so that you have with vulnerability management, with threat and overall incident reporting. I was just recently reading an article yesterday. There's a lot of threat data that's out there. People want it merged in kind of one place to be able to work with that and automate response. So if there's a compliance issue, compliance violation, even from what-if analysis, you're able to kind of prepare ahead of time what you're going to do in terms of an automated workflow response. And that stretches across incident reporting, that stretches across vulnerability testing. or compliance is built in now for vulnerability testing and being able to determine needed compliance actions. Another thing that, just to highlight as well is kind of a newer concept with CWPP, or cloud workload protection programs. That in healthcare especially, we just have scenarios with customers where it's across, it's hybrid, it's multi-cloud, and the protection programs. It's one thing when it's just on AWS or Azure or Cloud GCP, and you have your cloud security plan, your platform or platforms and tools. It's another thing to work with workloads that are going to be spread out across different clouds, spread off in terms of a hybrid arrangement. So that's a big area now where more and more healthcare organizations are looking to vendors to do more auto assignment, where it's again that automation of building out compliance controls and timely remediation across, uh, collaboration being very critical, so that it's not so much an approach and in terms of even a single vendor, but potentially multiple vendors sharing data, and creating a compliance posture from that. And that's really kind of the direction these customers are going, because there's a lot of technical debt in terms of compliance and cybersecurity investments, and it's not easy to just move everything onto one platform overall. So you're seeing more of this approach of, we need to be able to share data, we need to be able to kind of integrate data across different tools to be able to support our compliance posture.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate for
Thank you.
giving the insight, like how we should manage the risk in healthcare compliance, like starting from data integration to automation to collaborative remediation workflows, and obviously, like having one-stop shop dashboards for all the security and compliance, and taking what I called predictive compliance, right? How you can think about predictive compliance by using your machine learning and other algorithms, right, to understand what could come, right? And that can be possible when you do that, what if scenarios, so on and so forth. Okay. So thank you again for your time. So I think we have, we are towards the end of the sessions, and we can maybe open the floor now for any questions. Maybe Misha can check if we have any questions from the audience.
No, I cannot see any questions yet, but let's wait maybe for 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe let's get started. Maybe I will ask a couple of questions to our panelists. Maybe I will start with you, others. I think you talk about you are building a data and ethics as a competency within the roles. So can you talk about, like, why you feel that is very relevant, in the current scenarios, and how other customers would adapt it?
Thank you. It's a great question, Susant. So, I always take ethics in data and AI as a next evolution into compliance. With the, and then especially with the advent of generative AI now, and when we are looking at the system, which is a kind of a black box for us, and then it's so complex that we cannot look into it, and then we cannot be sure that it is following all the things what we want to be followed, right? So what are we going to do with that thing? What are we going to do when it comes to that? Yes, we have a compliance, we have a standard, and then we don't know whether it is following or not, and there's no way to prove it, right? That is when I think we will evolve into something where we will move into more human centric idea of whether this system is ethical or not, whether it is giving us, whether it is biased, whether it is making the decision it should not be making, right? So we have to move towards understanding how it is behaving, and then create a robust framework around the trustworthiness of the system. And that is, I think, is not very far future. We will see this demographic shift when it come to these kind of system which is complex enough to be regulated, and then we cannot be sure whether they are compliant or not. That is when the ethics will move into quality and regulatory as well. Yeah, with the European Union, getting up with AI Act, they are pushing human in the loop when it comes to AI, and then US is also getting up and then creating something around it. I recently came to know that Australia is also getting up with a regulatory assessment of this AI system. This is the question which will come, and then I think we have to be ready when it comes.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you. Thank you very much for giving that insight. So maybe Eric, one question to you as well. I think you talk about some of the trends. So what the trends are you seeing today in healthcare organizations related to healthcare compliance, as ransomware and other threat increases day by day?
Uh, well, first and foremost, it's not getting any better. I mean, healthcare attack surface overall, pretty robust in terms of you're a hacker. If you're looking to cause damage, harm, there's a wide range of potential threats that can come in. Very opportunity-rich environment across healthcare organizations, and part of that is, and there was a recent report about it, I think that kind of struck on this with data breaches is you've got a lot of organizations that invest in cybersecurity, but much more on what we would call more the people side. So let's bring in 15, 20 people to do compliance and cybersecurity. Let's bring in compliance auditors that can tell us, here are your mappings to controls, and that's one thing. Proactive security is the more important thing. Proactive compliance, which is how you then dealing with those threats in terms of process, but more importantly, is for part of process the manifestation of that, which is your technology investments. So there is more of an understanding that there needs to be more investments in the cybersecurity compliance processes within these organizations and the technologies. You just see, with data breaches, like half these organizations, I think the stat was like 55% don't do that, and don't react and kind of have a similar cybersecurity compliance posture to what they had before. So, I think things are starting to change, but this is just a very target-rich environment in healthcare.
Mhm.
And that's why automation is becoming more and more important, because people just can't control and track for every possible threat vulnerability that's out there across these rather large attack surfaces.
Okay, no, thank you, Eric. So, Eric, others do have any questions for me? Maybe before we.
One question which I have, Susant, if you can explain
Yep.
a little bit more about, if there are customers who want to start their, GXP journey, or the cloud, the
Yes.
demo which you showed, right? How can they start? How can they start it in an agile way?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So it's a very good questions. Others. So, um, how the customer can start their GXP journey. Obviously, everyone is doing GXP today. If you're into the healthcare, so if you're into pharmaceutical industry, but when you are adopting some of these cutting edge technologies such as machine learning or cloud computing, obviously you need to ensure that you need to revisit, right, three aspects. So people, process, and technology, right? You need to ensure that your staffs, they are being retrained the way cloud computing works or machine learning works. The old way of qualifying and validating your application doesn't hold good, right? We talk about some of these automations. You need to ensure they are well trained. And then process perspective, I think this entire industry is being governed by the SOPs, and SWIs, standard working instructions, for example. So you need to relook at, right? Because what I have seen over last 10 years, like all those SOPs and SWIs are being very data centric, data center centric. So we need to ensure how we can make them cloud savvy, right? And ensure that you have a very robust process now, because the evolution of infrastructure as a code, evolution of security as a code, or I also talk about compliance as a code, right? And at the end, process as a code, right? So now people are thinking about all the four aspects, so how we can bring them together and build an end-to-end solutions, right? That's number two. And number three is technology. Obviously, we talk about technology evolution, right? How we can bring some of the automations, DevOps, and automating your end to end, starting from qualifying your services, ensuring you build and deploy a secured and compliant infrastructure and solution in place, ensuring that you have the right kind of threat detections, code scanning, and all that, and then integrate that with automated testing, for example, IQ and OQ or PQ, that can be all integrated. And then end is once you are into production, once you're into operation, how will ensure, right, what Erik was talking about, right? The industry is moving from detective to proactive, and what I can add also predictive, right? So you need to ensure that you have all these mechanisms to be in place, right, to manage your compliance. And that's where CloudHub helps the customers starting from end to end your journey, right? We handhold the customers to build the strategy, build a roadmap, right? How you should onboard your GXP journey on cloud or on your machine learning or generative AIs, right? Because compliance is a journey. You cannot take everything on the day one, right? So you need to ensure that you define your maturity model and then you drive to achieve, step by step, right? And that's where, Cloud Hub comes in and helps customers to reduce their cost by almost, I can say, one fourth or one fifth of, what cost they are doing today in terms of managing their compliance, and then democratizing compliance at scale. And last but not the least is moving the needle, right? Because you need to bring new drugs to the market much faster. We think about what COVID-19 proves, because I was fortunate enough to help some of these COVID-19 vaccine manufacturer. I was helping them to move their needles, and they were able to bring those kind of products into the market within just maybe 1 year, 1.5 year time frame. And that's where they have adopted automations. Yeah, so that's how my company and I can help customers to achieve their GXP journey or HIPAA journey also. On cloud and on machine learning or generative AI.
Thank you. Thank you. Makes sense.
Misha, any questions
Uh,
from
no,
club?
we did not get any incoming questions, but thank you for your answers. It was very interesting.
Okay. No, awesome. No, thank you again, Erik and others. I think we're end of the session. So thank you for joining, and everyone, thanks for participating. It's one of those sessions we will have more and more such sessions. All right, and here is the QR code. I request everyone to scan it and to give the feedback so that we can improve on the way we are delivering the content to you. And again, we will always try to improve. So to summarize, what we discussed, as I mentioned, like there is a need for compliance automation in the industry because the evolution of cloud computing or machine learning, or at the end, everyone wants to join the bandwagon of generative AI or so-called Chat GPT, for example, right? But it needs lots of attentions. It needs automations, and there should be a paradigm shift the way we are managing our data. We need to ensure that we have data ethics. We need to have the right data governance and the data security in place to manage such kind of demand in the market. So with that, so again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.